Hello aspirants, welcome to Grace IS. Have you ever wondered why the lawmakers are given more privileges than ordinary citizens? So yes, today we are going to discuss parliamentary privileges. Why are they being given to the lawmakers? And so this is what under these heading we are going to discuss the entire topic, that is what is parliamentary privileges, are they defined, what is breach of privilege, then we'll talk about privilege committee, its mandate, power and functions, and then we'll look into some prelims and mains questions, sample UPSC prelims mains question. So earlier in the ethics session, Lok Sabha Ethics Committee, I have talked about a passing reference of privilege committee, and I have mentioned that we'll make a the detailed session. We'll be discussing in more detail about the privilege committee in another session. So that is what we are going to discuss today. So let's start one by one. What is parliamentary privileges? So before knowing the parliamentary privileges, what do you mean by the term privilege? What do you mean by the term privilege? So basically privilege means there are certain rights or advantage or immunities given to specific person or group. So what is privilege? Certain advantage or immunities or rights, specific rights given to specific people or specific group. It is not available to the ordinary citizens or ordinary people, but to certain specific people or the group. So that is what the meaning of privilege. Let's talk about parliamentary privileges. Parliamentary privileges. So the privileges is given to the lawmakers individually, as well as collectively to the law making institution. Privileges are given individually to the lawmakers. When I say lawmakers, it is available to both the members of parliament as well as members of legislature. The constitution under article 105 and article 194 deals with the privileges provided to the lawmakers. So article 105 deals with the parliamentary privileges and article 194 deals with the privileges provided to the state legislature and the members of state legislature, right? So we have seen the constitutional provision, that is article 105 and 194, that deals with the the privileges. So basically what are privileges? They are a set of rights. There are privileges are, parliamentary privileges are set of rights, immunities provided to the member of parliament individually, the parliament collectively as an institution, as well as the committees of the parliament, right? So these are the set of rights and immunities which are provided to the member of parliament, the parliament as an institution, as well as the committee of parliament. Why it is provided? Why it is provided? So that they can discharge their function which has been entrusted by the constitution upon them in an effective manner, so that they can discharge their duties and function which has been entrusted upon them by the constitution without any fear or favor, right? So that is what the purpose of giving these immunities. So you understood why The lawmakers are given more powers and more privileges in comparison to ordinary citizens because they have to, the constitution has entrusted them with certain very special function, lawmaking, which is very, very important function, isn't it? A country cannot run without, the law. In the absence of law, the country cannot run, or the nation cannot run effectively, and lawmaking is a very, very important function, very essential for the democracy, and that's the reason they are given certain in the rights, privileges and immunities so that they can discharge their function in an effective manner without any fear or favor. So these immunities are available collectively So these immunities are available collectively, individually. So these privileges and immunities are available to the member of parliament, parliament as a whole collectively, and as a member of parliament individually. So let's see what are the individual privileges provided to the member of parliament. Freedom from arrest. Freedom from arrest. So 40 days before the starting of session, so we know there are 3 sessions: winter session, summer, your budget session and monsoon session, right? So during, and there are special session as well. So 40 days before and 40 days after. 40 days before the session and 40 days after the session, the parliamentarians, they cannot be arrested. The reason being that lawmaking function has been given precedence. Even they cannot be, even they will not be called for the jury services. Jury services during this period. Jury services means providing as a witness. The court cannot summon them during this period. The reason being what? That lawmaking function has been given precedence over other function, right? So freedom from arrest. So is it both in civil or criminal cases or only in civil cases? So it is only in civil cases. The freedom from arrest is only in civil cases. Remember that, not in criminal cases. In criminal, the exemption is not available in criminal cases or preventive detention or even contempt of court. Contempt of court. Particularly the criminal contempt of court. So for this, the freedom from arrest is not available. It is available only in civil cases. So remember this point. This could be, an informations which can be asked in your prelims question. So remember this is a specific point. Secondly, freedom of speech. Freedom of speech and expression. So now you would wonder that freedom of speech and expression is also available to the citizen. So what is special about the lawmakers here? See, the freedom of speech and expression under Article 19(1)(a). You know what is the freedom of speech and expression provided under Article 19(1)(a). There is also a restriction under Article 19(1)(2). Reasonable restriction. Reasonable restrictions. But when it comes to the lawmaker, when it comes to the, the member of parliament, their freedom of speech and expression is much more wider in comparison to the ordinary citizens, because you have the restrictions, reasonable restriction, right? So the member of parliament, whatever they have said in the parliament, the manner in which they have voted, whatever they have spoken, whatever the way they have voted, it cannot be questioned in the court of law. It cannot, they are not answerable for that. But as an ordinary citizens, if you indulge in hate speech, you instigate any kind of violence through your speech, or even a defamatory cases can be slapped against you, isn't it? So there are certain reasonable restrictions. But here the freedom is much more wider, because whatever they have spoken inside the parliament, or in the debates, discussions, arguments, whatever they have spoken, and even if they have crossed certain lines, still they cannot be prosecuted. They cannot be prosecuted for that. Of course, the breach of privilege cases can be taken against them, but that should be done by the parliament itself. Breach of privilege can be done. Such cases can be taken against them if they cross the line, but it will be done by the parliament and not by the court, right? But such things are not available to ordinary citizens, right? So that is what the freedom of speech and expression is much more wider than ordinary citizens. The reason being, again, that they can discharge their functions without any fear and favor, without any fear. I mean, they can talk about any issues without any fear of being prosecuted, right? So that's the reason why the freedom of speech and expression provided to the member of parliament is much more wider. Now let's see the collective privileges. So we have seen the individual privileges. Now let's see the collective privileges. Collective privileges. So as in parliament, as an institution, they have certain collective privileges. Number one, right to publish. Right to publish, debate, discussion, speech, proceedings of the parliament. Right to publish reports, debates and proceedings of the parliament. The parliament is authorized to publish its reports, and also exclude other from publishing. If the parliament wants, they can exclude the outsider from publishing the proceedings of the parliament. So any unauthorized publishing of the proceedings of the parliament or debate of the parliament or whatever within the the four wall of parliaments, whatever happens, unauthorized publication will amount to breach of privilege. So they can, who have the right? It is the parliament. They have the right to get it published, all this, or they can authorize the outsider to publish. Without authorization, nobody can publish the proceedings, reports and all, right? So this is what the collective. Again, it is to protect the dignity of the parliament, to protect the dignity of the parliament. Secondly, to exclude the strangers from or outsiders from attending the parliamentary session. So you know that through visitors pass, any ordinary citizens, they can, they can visit the parliament during the parliamentary session and they can see how the parliamentary proceedings happens and all. So, but if the parliaments wants that they want to exclude, or when they have, some secret session of parliament, during that time, if they want to exclude the outsider from the proceedings, I mean, it is up to them whether to allow the outsider or not. If they are, they have right to exclude strangers or outsiders from attending the proceedings of the parliament, right? And if anybody does it, again, it would amount to breach of privilege. Without the authorization of parliament, you cannot attend. If you are attending, it will amount to breach of privilege. Then right to regulate the internal proceedings of the parliament. Or internal affairs of the parliament. So it is the parliament who have, right to regulate its internal affair. What does it mean? It means that under Article 122, no court can interfere in the working of the parliament. No court can interfere in the working of the parliament. Whatever happens within the four walls of the parliament has right to regulate. The court cannot interfere. The court has been barred from interfering in the affair of the parliament. Even nobody can be arrested. Member of parliament or the outsider who is attending the proceedings of the parliament without the consent of the presiding officer. Without the consent of the presiding officer, nobody can be arrested. Even an outsider who is attending the proceeding of the parliament, right? So that is what they are supreme in themselves. The parliament is supreme in itself. What happened within the four wall of the parliament, it is their, a complete authority of the parliament, and at that time, complete authority of the presiding officer to regulate the internal affairs of the parliament. The court has been barred from interfering. Again, why it has been given? The reason is to protect the dignity and independence of the parliament. To protect the dignity and independence of the parliament. Then they have right to give punishment. Right to punish members or outsiders. Right to punish members or outsiders for the contempt of parliament. They have right to punish the member or the outsider for the contempt of parliament. So if anybody, that is again, breach of privilege, that would amount of breach of privilege. So for the breach of privilege, that would amount to contempt of parliament, and people can be, even outsider can be punished, including fine or expulsion. Even the members can be, expelled, or even imprisonment. So they have right to punish. So they have some kind of, quasi-judicial function. Quasi-judicial function. Right, so we have seen so far what is parliamentary privileges and what is the constitutional provision. We have also seen that the privileges are available individually as well as collectively. Now let's see, are they defined? Whether the privileges are defined. Whether the privileges are defined. Whether the privileges are defined. So according to Article 105, it is the Parliament. It is the Parliament who is supposed to define the privileges by making law, by enacting a law. So Constitution has given right to the Parliament to define or codify the privileges through a law. So are there any law? So so far no law has been enacted to define the privileges or codify the privileges. So we are governed by British Convention, British Parliamentary Convention. In case of privileges, we are governed in the absence of law made by the Parliament. We are governed by the British Parliamentary Convention with regard to the parliamentary privileges, right? So they are not defined. When the questions come or when there is a statement that the privileges, parliamentary privileges are defined by a law made by Parliament. So far no law has come up. So still we are being governed by the British parliamentary privileges, right? British Convention. Now let's see, I have been talking about the breach of privileges and breach of privileges. So what is breach of privileges? Breach of privileges. So breach of privileges means basically the violations of privileges, right? Violation or transgression of violation or transgression of privileges available to the member of Parliament and Parliament collectively. If anybody violates that is amount to breach of privileges. That amounts to breach of privileges. That means if they obstruct the Parliament from functioning in a proper manner, or if the member of Parliament, they are obstructed from functioning without fear and favor, or the dignity of the Parliament is being attacked, or it has been lowered down, those all amounts to breach of privileges. Example, like if anything has been published in news or media, or even public statement or public speeches or news in the media, that lowers the dignity of the Parliament, that lowers the authority and dignity of the Parliament, that amounts to breach of privilege. And the person can be sued by under contempt of Parliament. So who will take up the cases? The Parliament itself. The Parliament itself will take up such cases. Even minister withholding any information, or any fact from the Parliament, or providing any wrong information or wrong facts or wrong data by the ministers, right? During question hours and all, the minister is supposed to provide answer. So during that period, if the ministers is providing any misleading information or wrong facts or data, even that amount to breach of privilege, because the member of parliament and the parliament, they are supposed to get the correct information, because they are the one who publish the informations, and also whatever goes from the parliament in terms of the news or publish or report to the public, it has to be fully authenticated, right? So, and which is based on the minister's informations and all. So obviously, if the ministers give wrong or misleading information or withhold some information which the member of parliament they are supposed to know, because again, freedom of speech and expression, freedom of speech and expression means right to correct information, right to information, correct information, right? Right to correct information. So if minister is not giving proper information or withholding some information, even that amounts to breach of privilege. And here we have already somebody publishing. So that's why many a time you see a journalist or even editor, they are being sued for the contempt of parliament when they publish any news or somebody even if they make statement or speeches which amount to attack on the dignity of the parliament or authority of the parliament, these all amounts to breach of privileges, right? I hope I made the things clear till here. So now let's look into the privilege committee. So just we talked about the breach of privileges. So if any ministers or anybody who has violated the privileges of the parliament, for that the case can be referred to the privilege committee. The case can be referred by the presiding officer to the privilege committee to look into the issues of violation of privilege. So privilege committee, the parliament has, both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, they have their privilege committee. Here it is consists of 15 members, it consists of 10 members nominated by the presiding officer. So here in case of speaker, here in case of chairman, nomination of the member will be done by whom? By the speaker or the chairman in Rajya Sabha. And the term, it's a standing committee. Standing committee means it's a regular in nature. It is not ad hoc. It is a permanent standing committee. And each house, they have a privilege committee. Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha separately, they'll have the privilege committee. 15 members committee, privilege committee in Lok Sabha, 10 members in the Rajya Sabha. Nomination is done by the presiding officer. Now, what is the mandate of the committee? What is the mandate of the committee? Why the committee is being constituted? The committee is being constituted to safeguard the freedom, authority and dignity of the parliament. To safeguard freedom, authority and dignity of the parliament. To safeguard the freedom, authority and dignity of the parliament. That's the reason being why the committee is being constituted. Now let's look into the power and function of the committee. So what the committee do? So it examines every question involving the breach of privilege. It examines every questions that related to the breach of privilege. And who will refer to the committee? The presiding officer. The presiding officer will refer to the committee any question of breach of privilege. So in case of Lok Sabha, it is the speaker who will refer the issues related to breach of privilege to the privilege committee, and in case of Rajya Sabha, it is the chairman, right, the presiding officer. Additionally, even the speaker or the presiding officer, they can refer issues related with defection. So basically, when under the 10th schedule, under the 10th schedule, the anti-defection law. So any member of parliament, if they are involved in the case of defection, so such cases can be referred by the speaker or the presiding officer to the privilege committee, and the privilege committee, they will make the preliminary inquiry whether the member of parliament was involved in defection or not. So they will do all the preliminary inquiry and they will make the report thereon, and they will again produce it to the speaker or submit it to the speaker. The report will be submitted to the speaker along with the recommendations. So whether the recommendation is binding? No. Whether the recommendation is binding on the speaker to accept the recommendation? So it is no. The recommendation is not binding. It is advisory in nature. Whatever the recommendation is made by the privilege committee, or for that matter any committee, it is not binding. It will be tabled in the house, and after that privilege motion can be resorted to. Privilege motion can be brought, and if it is passed, accordingly, whether if there is any recommendations regarding to expulsion or suspension of the members, so it has to be passed. It has to be accepted by the authority, by the speaker, and once it is being done, then it is put to vote. And finally the decision is being taken by the through the system of voting, right? So it is advisory in nature. So we have done with the parliamentary committee and its function. Now let's look into one prelims question and one mains question. So we have done with this mandate, power, functions. We have completed entire thing. What is parliamentary privileges? Are they defined? What is breach of privileges? Privilege committee, its mandate, power and function. And then we'll look into one prelims and mains question, which is a sample question. Look at this question. Consider the following statement in the context of parliamentary privileges and immunities. Parliament is authorized to define the parliamentary privileges through the enactment of law. Whether the statement is correct? So we have already, we have discussed that it is the parliament who is authorized to enact the law and define the parliamentary privileges. So yes, parliament is authorized. So this statement is correct. So yes, this statement is correct, isn't it? We have just discussed that Parliament is authorized to define the parliamentary privileges through the enactment of law, though no law has come, but then we know that Parliament can do it, isn't it? Privileges of the Member of Parliament is provision under Article 106 of the Constitution. So is it 106 or something else? So we have discussed that. What is the provision? The provision is mentioned under Article 105, isn't it? So this statement is wrong. The next statement, there is freedom from arrest to the Member of Parliament in both civil and criminal cases during the session of the Parliament. Again, this information we have discussed, and what we have discussed, that it is available only in civil cases, not in criminal cases. So, because of this statement is also wrong, incorrect, right? So, what is the answer here? Which of the above statement is that correct? 1 only, 2 and 3, only 1 and 2 only, all of the above. So, look at this. So, number 1 statement is correct, number 2 and number 3 is incorrect. So, the answer is A. The answer is A. So that's the reason, while I was discussing, I told you to pay attention and concentrate on the informations, because such information can become part of your prelims questions. Now let's look into one mains question. So there is a lot of issues regarding codification of privileges, because there are instances of its misuse. There are instances of its misuse because the privileges are not codified. It is open to, interpretation and misinterpretation, and we have seen that there is many cases of misuse has also taken place. So, many at times the question is being raised for the codification of the privileges. So in this, you see, look at the question. In the absence of codification of parliamentary privileges, it is open to misuse. Highlight the importance of parliamentary privileges and its immunities for the effective functioning of democracy, and also discuss the need of its codification. So this is what, the approach of your answer should be. You can start with, mentioning Article 105, that Article 105 deals with the parliamentary privileges and why it is being provided. Just mention about those things and the significance of its ensuring the smooth functioning of parliamentary system. So privileges and immunities are very important. They are essential. We have already seen for the effective functioning of the democracy, so that the members, they can discharge their function, so that the parliament can discharge their function effectively as per the duties which has been casted upon them. And then in the body you can discuss about, why the parliamentary privileges has not been codified, and also, the highlights the importance of the parliament, why, parliamentary privileges are important, mention about that, and then discuss why the parliamentary privileges have not been codified. Has not been codified. Provide examples. You have to see for any mains answer, you have to provide certain example, facts, data and figure, without which your answer would not be authentic. You won't get very good marks. So example is must to support your answer. Parliamentary privileges and the ambiguities surrounding it. Suggest ways to address the ambiguities. Then you provide the suggestions regarding how it can be addressed, and in the conclusion you can mention the importance of codifying the privileges. So let's see that why, it has not been codified. So why the privileges has not been codified? The reason for not codified. Why privileges not codified? The reasons. So the reason is, number one, autonomy and flexibility. Autonomy and flexibility. Because if they are being codified, then probably, the parliament, there may be certain restrictions, because once the codification happens, it will be, a boundary will be, created, and in the functioning of the parliament, there are a lot of dynamic situations, and going beyond those codification, it may be difficult, even if the situations requires. So in that the reason that if it is not codified, it provides more autonomy, independence to the functioning of parliament, and also flexibility to the parliament, because as and when the new situation comes, the parliament can, interpret it that, okay, this amounts to breach of privilege, or this does not amount to breach of privilege. So there is certain open, case. Just like the judiciary, the judiciary interprets certain things. Everything is not well defined, and it depends on the judicial interpretation, isn't it? So in the same way, the parliament may interpret. If it is codified, a boundary will be there, and if there is some situation which arises, which may demand to go beyond those codified privileges, in that case it may be difficult. So that is one of the reasons that codification may hampers the autonomy and flexibility of the working of the parliament. Then there are a lot of sources. There are a lot of sources for the privileges, like, the constitution itself, article 105, then rules of the house, conventions, judicial, judicial interpretation. So all these are the sources of parliamentary privileges, and combining all this and then codifying the privileges, combining all these, the privileges provided under this, and codifying and compiling is a very complex task. It's a very complex task. So that's the reason that so far it has not been codified. No law has been enacted upon that. But that doesn't mean that, codification, there should not be codification, because of this openness, there's a lot of misuse, because the case is so open, and the varied interpretation can be drawn, and many a time it has been misused as well. So the cases of misuse, you can write some cases of misuse, like you can give the example of this JM bribery case, where in the PV Narasimha Rao versus state. In this, the member of parliament were being offered money, they were being given money, they were being bribed to not to vote against the no confidence motion against the government. And Supreme Court in 1998, They given the verdict that the five-judge bench, they given the verdict that the member of parliament who have taken bribe for voting in certain manner, the criminal cases cannot be slapped against them because of the immunities provided, whatever they have done within the four wall of the parliament, and court cannot interfere, right? The court cannot interfere. We have seen, right? The way they have voted, the way they have spoken, that cannot be questioned in the court of law. But since bribe was involved, the case went to the Supreme Court. And during that time, Supreme Court given the verdict that if the member of parliament has voted in the manner they were supposed to vote by taking the bribe, no criminal case can be issued against them. But in 2024, the seven-judge bench, they have overturned the 1998 verdict, and they said that bribing is a criminal offense under Prevention of Corruption Act, which is made for the public servant, and the member of parliament comes under its purview. So bribing is a criminal offense. So if member of parliament, they are taking the bribe to vote in certain manner, criminal cases can be slapped against them and they can be prosecuted. So whatever the rectification of verdict has happened, and that has resulted in holding the dignity of the parliament, because such act, member of parliament taking bribe or for voting or for asking question, that is a criminal offense, because it itself lowers the dignity of the parliament, right? So that's what, like, why did they take the bribe? The member of parliament, they take the bribe because they know, that whatever we are doing within the precinct of the parliament, the court cannot inquire. So it's like a misuse of parliamentary privileges. But now the Supreme Court had said, if they are taking bribe, it will come under the Offence Prevention of Corruption Act, and they can be prosecuted. And there is like many instances where journalist and editor of newspaper, many a time they have been sued for the contempt of parliament or breach of privileges for publishing certain reports or making some statement in the news, and they have been even imprisoned, they have been targeted. So that basically violates the fundamental rights. So there's a relation between breach of privileges and fundamental rights. So in this case, you will see that breach of privilege case somewhere violates the fundamental rights. If the report is authentic, there should not be any breach of privilege, right? If there is any report or any publications which is authentic, backed by proper facts and all, and for that they should not be sued for the contempt of parliament, isn't it? Or breach of privilege case should not be slapped against them. So again, this is a misuse. Many times we have seen the journalists, like in 2003, Tamil Nadu Assembly, Legislative Assembly, they have sued this editor of a newspaper, editor and journalist of the newspaper, for the contempt of parliament for certain publications which they found that it lowers the dignity of the legislature. So you see, somewhere citizens' freedom of speech and expression, their fundamental right, Article 19 and Article 21 is being violated. So there should be balance between parliamentary privileges and fundamental rights of the citizens. Because fundamental rights of the citizens has been given a transcendental position by the Supreme Court itself. They're the basics, they're the part of the basic structure, which is very, very important, right? So, for all this, codification of privileges is important so that people are aware that what is there in the privileges, clear-cut distinction is being made. So, addressing the issues of non-codification of privileges. So, how it can be addressed? By codifying the privileges of the member of parliament and the state legislature. The codification can be made. Of course, as we have talked that codification is not easy, it's a very complex task. So, legal experts, all the stakeholders involved, they should come to a vote and they should discuss, and accordingly the privileges can be codified. Secondly, awareness can be created. Awareness and education to the member of parliament should be done to make them very clear that this is what the privileges are, and you cannot go beyond that. Because many a time member of parliament themselves, they are not very clear about. Many times even they have misused, particularly for arrest and all. And even they have made many inflammatory speeches as well. Because they know they have the freedom of speech and expression. So, awareness and education should be generated for the member of parliament regarding the privileges. What are your privileges? Judicial scrutiny. Judicial oversight or judicial scrutiny is again important part to prevent the misuse of privileges, parliamentary privileges. So, judicial oversight should be there so that parliamentary privileges or breach of privileges, such kind of issues which are being misused, must be resolved by the judiciary. So, judicial scrutiny is very, very important, particularly when there is a conflict between fundamental rights and breach of privileges. So, that should be resolved by the judicial intervention. Periodic review. Once the codification is done, there should be periodic review. Because see, once the codification is done and some situation may arise which may require some kind of amendment, some changes in that codification. So, periodic review of the codification is also very, very essential. So, these points you can mention about that codification of privileges are important, that's necessary, but before that a good discussion should be done. Legal expert and stakeholders should be involved in the codification of the privileges. What are the legal issues that should be also addressed? Awareness and education to the member of parliament should be generated or should be done so that make them aware about what are their privileges and what are their immunities, so that they should not misuse it, and it should not be open to misinterpretation and misuse. And then a judicial scrutiny for should be there, particularly when the case is involved related to a violation of fundamental rights, or there is a conflict between breach of privileges and fundamental rights. And then finally there should be a periodic review once the codification is done, in the light of the situational changes or environmental changes. Those changes can be incorporated in the codification, right? So with this, quite comprehensively, I have tried to deal with this parliamentary privileges. So we have done so we have done all these topic, that what is parliamentary privileges, and whether they are defined, what is the breach of privilege. We have seen privilege committee, its mandate, power, function, and then we have also looked into the prelims and mains questions. So I hope this session would be very useful for you. So for more, we'll come up with some more good session, and we'll come up with some